Welcome, everyone, to In Other Worlds. Today, we are sitting down with Otto Schaefer. Otto, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. So, you have a couple of series that you have published. You've got Godstone and Wrack and Ruin. I try to keep everything kind of spoiler light for people who haven't read the series, and so we'll mostly just cover what is in book one, probably for each of the series that you have out.
Okay.
So, God of Stone is your YA series. Give us a little bit of a rundown on that one.
Right. So this follows, and in all my writing I do this, but I bounce between two characters, typically male and female. And in the Secret Journal, I wrote it that way. And the two primary characters are Brienne and Garrett. Garrett's from a small town, actually based in my hometown. A lot of people say, "Is Garrett you?" And I say, well, I think all your characters are you to some extent, but Garrett is in a small town, and he and his buddies, all come from kind of blue-collar families and don't have a lot of money, and they run around town together, just like you would think of a typical small-town group of kids, right? Mm-hmm. And they're doing some work in this old Victorian home for a kind of I don't know if mysterious character is the right term, but he's a real churchy guy, and he bought this Victorian. He's fixing it up, and they're in his basement, and they're doing some work, and they're horse playing while he's not around, and they're like kicking and punching, and somebody's got a pair of pruners and pretending like it's a sword, and the other kid kicks it out of his hand, and it goes behind through this little opening and into the crawl space, and so they had to get back there and go get it before the owner comes down the stairs and catches them. So one of them's kind of doing lookout, the other one's climbing back in there, and they find this part of an old journal behind that wall. And one of the kids, Pete, who is kind of a fan favorite, he is kind of the nerd of the bunch, and he figures out a way to get this journal, like he takes it home and figures out how to make this little humidifying chamber to moisten the pages so that he can open it, because it's real brittle. So
that's pretty intense.
Yeah, so he starts like kind of getting it. He's using garbage bags and a humidifier and stuff and trying to get this thing softened up. So anyway, he starts reading it, but it's so old and like stained that they're missing pieces of it, and they're only getting certain clues. But it kind of leads these kids on this mystery, I guess, on how to figure out where this journal's leading them. And in the meantime, you've got Brienne, who has a much more exciting life, I guess, than her counterpart, Garrett. But she is the daughter of a famous archaeologist, and he is usually on location somewhere around the world, and she's spending summer with him with her dad before she goes off to college. So she's on a dig site in Mexico when the book starts, and they ultimately end up on Oak Island.
Ooh, I love it.
Because some mysterious person who doesn't want to be named is funding this huge expedition and wants her father to lead it. So they fly out to Oak Island, and he begins this expedition that follows a little bit like the real Oak Island series, except in my book they find stuff. But it's not what anybody thinks it's going to be. So in book one, they do enter an underground chamber, and a little bit of magic kind of starts to happen in that space. So I do think that, book one of this series reads kind of like a mystery. It's not like you're not going to get tons of dragons and giants and all the things that you will get throughout the series. But it's a 5-book series, and you do get dragons and giants and sentient trees, which are probably my favorite, believe it or not, throughout the series. But they don't really come into play in the first book. The first book kind of reads more like a mystery. So the idea being that Brienne and her father find what they think is the Ark of the Covenant. They thought they found maybe the Holy Grail and all these things inside this treasure chest that they find, but that's not actually what's inside of it. So when they find it and discover it in the book, you find out that it's actually the Godstones. And the Godstones, when assembled, become a crown, and it's a really powerful magical catalyst that is in this chest and buried deep in Oak Island because nobody was ever meant to find it. It was hidden there for a specific reason. And once they find it and open it, it kind of releases magic back into the world. And that secret or mysterious guy who was funding everything turns out to be the guy who's trying to get a hold of that. I won't go into too much about why, but he's not a good person. Don't even want to say he's a person, but he's not good. And he's our villain, so he wants to get his hands on that very powerful Godstone's crown. And then in the meantime, Garrett and his buddies end up getting to the point where they know kind of where the book's leading or where the journal's leading them. They know who wrote it. They get that far in book one. And then in book one also we see Brienne and Garrett's kind of storylines merge and how they, because I think a lot of what the readers are wondering through the first book is like, how do these two storylines ever come together? Like, how does that happen? So I think part of the fun of the first book is finding out how those two eventually connect and kind of like join up. And then in book two, they can start working towards going to this secret place that they figured out the journal was leading them, while our villain also needs to get to that place. And he's got, you know, the power of the Godstone. So that's kind of how the whole series kind of kicks off, I guess I'd say. And then as we get into the next book, we get into trees, and sentient trees being my favorite is there's a whole like hierarchy of trees. Kind of thought about Tolkien. And like how he did trees. But I wanted to create this whole hierarchy. So what I did is I used a lot of trees that we have around the world. We have a lot of really cool trees that have names, right? That are really old. We've got some 12,000-year-old trees, but they've been alive and watching how humans treat them, right?
Ooh, we have some angry trees.
So think about how, you know, how trees might feel. When, like, I live in a log cabin, and I've got a couple oak trees outside the house that are...
You'll be the first one to go.
I mean, I just built my home out of their bones, basically, right? So furniture and whatever, and we're tearing, you know, we're clearing the rainforest for more pastures for cows, and there's just, you know, we're not very good to trees, probably. In book three, we got the cover of book three. I wish I could show you covers on here, but the cover of book three is the Tree Queen. And she's got a three-headed dragon behind her on the cover because he comes into play too in the third book. But anyway, so yeah, book three is probably my favorite, I think, of the series, just because of the trees and so much stuff that comes into play. So I've also got an army of giants that live in the center of the earth that once magic's released, feel it and know that it's time to go back to the surface. So they're coming. And they're coming, a whole massive horde or whatever you want to call it, of giants that also, you know, look at humans as food. So they're coming up from the middle and they're coming out in the rainforest from a cave there. And then I have dragons, and I use some real places, which is kind of fun. So I've got this. If you Google the Band of Holes, you can just Google Band of Holes Peru, and you'll see these holes that go in a band all the way up this mountain. And the cool thing about it is nobody really knows for sure what those holes were for, but they're like 4 feet deep and like maybe, you know, 4 or 5 feet across, and they're just holes in the side of a mountain. And there's no foliage on this mountain. It's just like desert, right? But this band, you can see it from space, band that just goes all the way up. So in my book, those were where dragons were buried, eggs were buried, and then they hatched.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so that's where dragons were buried and hatched. But then there's also
Very cool.
mountains around those that you don't see those holes because those are where eggs are that haven't hatched. So under the right conditions, under the right conditions, they'll hatch. And so I get dragon hordes, giant armies, and the trees, and these kids all trying to stop this really bad wizard guy to save the world. So that's essentially what the books are kind of about.
Now, did you pick Oak Island because you are fascinated by Oak Island? Because I grew up reading everything that I could about the mystery of Oak Island.
Yeah, I love the Oak Island story. I watched all the seasons of the Oak Island shoe. And I think I was like so frustrated because I'm like, can they please find something more than a lead cross?
Anything.
So,
those ox shoes, I got so sick of seeing the ox shoes.
Yeah, right?
Oh,
so I was like, I want to write Oak Island in, but I want them to find, like, that's where I want my magical thing to be buried, right?
And the theories are that it's, you know, the Ark of the Covenant or the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. I've been obsessed with Oak Island for, gosh, almost my entire life.
Yeah, I know. I love it. And so I have my own like spinoff of like the Knights Templar. I've got a president that grew up. There was a president in my hometown here in Illinois. I'll just tell you who it was. It's Abraham Lincoln, who surveyed the streets for the town that I grew up in. He was a surveyor. It was one of his many jobs. He also lived at a little place called New Salem, which is it's a state park now, but like the reconstructed cabin that he lived in and all that stuff's out there, right? So Abraham Lincoln was a big part of my childhood. I actually worked at that park when I was a kid. And so having him be part of the story in a fictional way was a lot of fun for me. So the locations that I used in my little hometown of Petersburg, Illinois were real locations. The tunnel's a real place. The brickwork inside that tunnel's real and creepy. And, you know, it's pretty much true until it's not, if that makes sense. It's pretty much, you know, I told it pretty true to my childhood until it wasn't, until it was magic, right? Until magic.
So you added magic in there.
Yeah. So that was that. It was definitely a fun series and 7 years of writing to get that, because I started writing it. I guess I really started writing it in 2016, published the first book in 2019, and published one book every year after until it was done. So probably more like 8 or 9 years of actual writing that story.
That's a long time. So what do you think of the hardest part of adding in these magical, like mythical creatures into our everyday world was?
I don't know. I mean, the research, because if you're going to probably stay true to real locations, and when I'm inside of a pyramid in Mexico and I'm describing what they're seeing and the archaeology and stuff, I wanted it to be, even to the point where I spent some time talking to a lady who, she had traced her ancestry back to Mayan, and she actually knew Mayan language. Like she knew it, she studied it. Mm-hmm. And she wrote about it, and I had been talking to her, and she helped me with like some of the words that I used, some of the language that I used in the, I guess it would have been like mostly the second and third book. I actually have a character that joins the group in book 2 who is Mayan descendant. She's a young girl who kind of connects with Garrett and Brienne in the next book. So anyway, being able to use that, but I think the magical stuff, making up stuff's easier for me than it, like the research on like all the real stuff is where the work comes in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have to do a ton of research on like the humidity chamber and how to build your own?
Yeah, I had to do some research on that and how to build it. Yep, I researched it. And then I also had to do a lot of Abraham Lincoln research and kind of the mystery and stuff around why he never joined the Freemasons, but his mentor was a Freemason. And I had to do a lot of Knights Templar research. I had to do, some Oak Island research, but I was pretty good at that because I knew I was a...
That's the fascinating
I was kind of a
research.
freak. Yeah, I was a freak when it came to that because I knew I had watched every episode. That was there for me, right? But yeah, I think when it comes to magic, it's how do you make that seamless transition, especially when you're doing a modern day fantasy into, our modern day and make it believable, right?
Yeah.
Without it being hokey. So for me, I feel like that's the tricky part. That's the art, is if you can really make it transition. It's like make it as seamless as you possibly can and believable as you can. Like if this were going to happen, this is how it would happen, and I can believe that, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's going to be completely nutso out there, like, because some of it's so. We go off world at one point in the series.
Wow.
You find out where some of the characters are from. I literally solve like all the mysteries of the universe in this series. I feel like I got it. It's all there.
Fantastic.
Right.
Somebody needs to solve them.
I did it. It's all there. Just gotta read it.
So this is a finished series. Do you have any plans to revisit this universe?
Because
you left it a little open, like a little open, I think.
I did.
Come back in if you wanted to.
I did leave it open for the very reason that I could, and I have great ideas for spinoffs and different things. I guess it would depend, maybe after I retire from my job, and which is only about 4 or 5 years away, and I can write full time.
Are you planning on retiring early?
Well, I'd like to retire by the time I'm like 57, maybe 58. So maybe I'm looking at like 6 to 8 years, I guess, depending on when I go. But yeah, I would like to go back and revisit it, but it's also not, it'd be easy for me to answer you with like on the zombie stuff, like you plan on going back. I've already got a whole nother, like the next book's going to be the last book in the series, but then I know I want to jump forward like 10 years, then Journey's 16 years old. And then I want to tell a whole nother story with her from her POV where she gets a clue about her dad and goes off to find him on her own. And so I've got this whole like idea for her, and I can do that, and it'll be fine because it's a really to me. I mean, by my measurements, it's really popular. But the Secret Journal stuff has been, it's done okay, but it's definitely not as popular as maybe my zombie stuff. So, do you invest and go back and do that and write spinoffs of something that's maybe not as
right,
as popular as your other stuff? I don't know.
Speaking of the zombie stuff, Wrack and Ruin is your other series. Give us a kind of a quick rundown on that one.
I always wanted to write zombies. I'm a huge zombie fan. I love probably Dawn of the Dead, maybe my favorite. I love Train to Busan. I just love zombie horror in general. I've read a lot of zombie stuff. Mountain Man's probably my favorite book series, though there are some good ones out there. But I always wanted to do it. I always wanted to write it. And so when I finished this series of writing YA, I also wanted to write a series that I could just swear constantly. Because I couldn't through this series. I was always having to find other... Yeah, it's YA. So I couldn't... Like, the kids banter back and forth and they swear a little bit, but I couldn't, really drop the F-bomb. And I figured, zombies is about the best time as any to be dropping F-bombs. But I also had this, I wanted to write a zombie series from... Again, I went between a male and a female. My male is a garbage man, right? He's a sanitation worker, garbage man, whatever you want to call it, that doesn't offend people. But I used to be a garbage man, so garbage man works for me. I drove a garbage truck, so I knew a lot about what that job is like. I did that 20 years ago. And so I wanted to write it from his point of view, but I also wanted to write it from a nurse's point of view who's just trying to figure out what's happening. That way I could get real sciencey. And I wanted it to be backed up by science. So my zombie series definitely leans heavily into the why people are becoming zombies. So I wanted that to be really plausible. And I used a lot of research on parasites and different types of parasites. And it's crazy what's in nature already without introducing an alien, wherever it's from,
really
into
know.
it, right?
You don't know.
We don't really know. So we don't know. Yeah, that was what I wanted to do. And so I had a lot of fun writing that. And I didn't want to write a lot of your typical zombie stuff. It's you're following the military or some military person who's just a badass and they're, they know how to use every kind of gun and they know, and I didn't want that. So the fact that my character even survives the first book is
impressive.
Pure stupid luck. I mean, because he did some dumb stuff. In fact, it drove some people crazy. They were like, "Is anybody that stupid that they would do that?" And I think, but the answer is yes. There are people that, and I don't think it was out of stupidity. It was just, maybe not the best decision making under pressure, right?
Well, that and panic and
all those
things. Stupid decisions when you're
right.
In a panic state.
Yeah, when I was writing it, I'm like, God, I wouldn't do that, but. Okay, and I talk to my characters like that. If you're sure you want to do it this way, I mean, okay, but I'm probably weird when I write, but yeah, that's totally the conversations I have with my characters. And then, I thought Zoe and they also have their marital issues and different things going on, which I think made it kind of fun. And then, of course, I like to say I do zombies different. You find out in book one that you find out in book one that when you get infected, you don't have to be dead to get infected, and being infected in itself doesn't kill you. So you just become insane. And I'll tell you what made me think of this is I watched a movie called The Crazies. Have you ever seen that?
I was actually an extra in that movie.
Were you really?
I was.
I love that movie.
They filmed it in Perry, Georgia, and a friend of mine was an extra, and they needed more people, and he was like, "Do you want to come do it?" I said, "Yes, I do." And it was 3 12-hour shifts overnight in the cold, but it was 100% worth it. It was so much fun.
Can I see you in the movie? I will go watch it right after this.
You probably can. My brother was watching it and paused the screen and called me and was like, "I can see you on my TV right now." But I have a really short pixie cut, and it's bleach blonde in that movie. And I am in the scene where they're all lined up and the military has shown up and they're trying to take everyone's temperature to see if they're infected or not. And then they're kind of corralling everyone. So I'm in one of those lines and I'm getting my temperature checked. And then I end up in the corralled off area with the crazies. It was so much fun.
That sounds so awesome. Yeah, I love that movie.
That's
I
a
love
good.
it.
I was actually going to ask where the inspiration for that came from, though, because it's the
That's
most
the
unique
inspiration
take.
for the first phase. Yeah,
Yeah.
phase 1, they lose their minds, but the cravings that you get as you're a living person who gets this infection. So this, right? You get infected, and you crave it, and you smell it, and it's like, imagine the thing you would crave more than anything. It's worse, right? It's like undeniable craving, and you can smell, or at least there's some chemical a human brain puts off that is now, you can smell it. So they talk a lot about that through the book, right? I can smell it.
Yeah.
Give it to me, and you can't keep it for yourself, and just the crazy things they say is almost creepier than when they become full-blown zombies, right?
It is. It is.
It is just their, yeah. And of course the fact that they can operate a vehicle, or they could use a gun, and but it's still like the worst drug you could ever imagine. You got to have it, so you just go nuts for it. That's the phase 1 of it. And then if you kill them, don't destroy their brain, then they come back as a full-blown zombie. But my zombies run. I like running zombies. I don't like
would never
Walking Dead
survive.
zombies.
I would never survive a running zombie.
Yeah. I know, I probably wouldn't either, but that's my favorite kind to write about, because I got so bored with Walking Dead zombies, and it became less about Walking Dead and more about the soap opera of what's going on with the infighting and stuff, which is interesting, but I don't know. I wanted to write about zombies. So then it's like, okay, so as I've written through the series, how do you amp that up, right? So then we start to get into the amalgamations, which is where and I guess I shouldn't go too much into it, but it's where the zombies start to merge and become these monstrosities of human,
That
conglomerations.
was so gross.
It was gross, wasn't it?
It was so gross, but it was so good. Gross,
Thank you.
disgusting, but good. This
Yeah.
series has so much action in it, but it's also incredibly character driven. How did you find that balance between action and character so there wasn't too much of each?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, you always have to tell the story within the story, right? Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of it is, what's the story going to be? And in this story, we have a little girl whose mom is died in this horrible accident, and then Oliver has now, taken her in essentially and is trying to get home, while his wife is in another part, another city, opposite direction, trying to make her way back home. So both, as we bounce back and forth, they're both trying to get home. So just going like, what are the things that they're thinking about? And then, there's that underlying, the book starts off after a horrible fight that they had over, her convinced of his infidelity. And so you've got that whole story. So you got that story happening, that tension. And then you have a little girl kind of thrown into this mix with them. That's not their kid. So, just telling that story. And then I think the other thing that I'll just drop here that's important in both my series is I have an amazing editor. So her guidance in telling me when, hey, can you give me more interiority from, Zoe on what she's feeling about this right now in this moment,
Right.
when we edit. So I think I've been with my editor for all my books. Both series has been the same editor. And she's, I did try a different editor before her, and it was not. I could tell right away. It's like, no, this isn't gonna work. And when I found Kristen, it was just like, it was perfect. So she tells me, and it's not always things I want to hear. Sometimes I'll get my feedback and be like, I've learned now after so many books that I get my feedback, I read through it. Sometimes I get pissed. Then I just close the laptop and I take a day and I let it, and then I come back and I read it all again. And what I find is when I read it again, I'm like, oh God, she's right about that. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh, I should have saw that, And so I can kind of come back and just got to give myself time to digest it a little bit and then come back and look at it anew, right? And I don't know, she's been really good. So a lot of her guidance helps me strike that balance, And sometimes it's adding more to a scene, and sometimes it's cutting, right? Killing your darlings, which she has no problem doing to my work when it needs to happen.
Were there any major scenes that you had written that she wanted you to cut that you were disappointed that you needed to take out?
Yeah, I'm sure there were. Probably, the first series that I wrote, The Keepers of the Light and The Secret Journal were all one book. And it was really long. And she said, I think you need to break this into two, and I think you need to lose all this, and I think this needs to go, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, it was a ton of work getting through the first two books. After I published the first one, though, I was able to do the second one pretty quick because it had already been written. It was just rewriting and rewriting. And I don't think I've ever rewritten a book as much as I rewrote Secret Journal. That one was really hard. But I mean, I think, you know, there's a journey through that series of, I hope, of those books getting better as you go and me becoming a better writer, right?
Yeah.
As I go. And then I think that I don't think I could have started off writing Wrack and Ruin without this other series having given me all the experience that it did. So then I came into Wrack and Ruin and I said, okay, I just wrote this epically long fantasy series, and that last book in my fantasy series is like 600 and some pages, right? So specifically coming off the Last Gift, which I do think, I do love that book a lot. But coming off that, I was like, okay, I want something fast. I want it punchy. I don't want it to be long. I want a short, punchy story that just let's get right into it. And I think within a dozen pages, the apocalypse is hit and we're going, right? I mean, it doesn't take long and we're just rolling into it. So I think I kind of knew what I wanted going into that, that I wanted it to be a lot of action. And I do love to end chapters on cliffhangers and then bounce to the other POV, which is just even more punishing to the poor reader, but it just makes it that much more, it makes it that much more tense. And every chapter can't be a cliffhanger, so you've got to, it's a tool, use it wisely, as my editor would say, right?
What was the hardest part of transitioning from a YA series to kind of an adult horror?
I don't think there was anything hard about it. For me, I mean, it's harder to go the other way, I would think, right? I feel like there's more rules, right? You know, like, here's an example. Book 2 of The Keepers of Light in the fantasy series, super action-packed, that one, compared to the first one. Like, it's action. But I describe somebody getting their arm cut off, right? And I describe, gets his arm cut off, blood, and blah, 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 and like, what looks, you know. And she's like, hey, this is where she used this example. It really taught me a lot. So I go into all this, all this description about this person getting their arm torn out of their socket or whatever. She's like, you can say this, you can say that their arm got pulled out of socket, but you cannot describe in detail what that looks like because this is a YA book, right? So
You'll
you
get
can't
some
now
nightmares.
Yeah, you can definitely, the arm can go, but you just got to do it in the right way. You can't. So that, to me, that I get into the Wrack and Ruin and I want to describe somebody eating somebody's brain or eating a cat's brain or whatever gross stuff that has happened through that series. And I do. There's, you know, if I can make my editor like nauseous or something and she'll tell me like I almost yacked in that part, but then she'll also praise me for it. I'm like, that's a win. Like, that's what I'm going for. So yeah, they get pretty gory, right? I think it would be harder to go the other way, to go back, but I could do it. I just think you just got to know the rules, right?
Yeah, and I think you'd have to get into that different mindset before you started writing it also. You'd have to be like, all right, I got to write it in. I got to remember that it's kids. I can't get too gory. Yeah. And so there are going to be... now, this series is done. The Wrack and Ruin series is also done, right? It's 4 books?
5. No, I'm writing the 5th one now.
Okay, number 5 now. When will number 5 be
out? Next summer. Let's just say next summer. But if I ended it where this book ends at, people would hate me because it's definitely not complete. But it'll be complete. At the end of the 5th book, the story's complete. And then I just have to decide, you know, if I want to do that 10-year jump ahead and pick it back up. And I think I do. I think I will want to do that. I might, you know, write another book in between. So this book I was telling you about that I haven't told anybody about, I've been writing this in between. There's times for a writer when your book's setting with the editor and you're kind of stuck in limbo waiting and you don't want to start the next book because you're not sure what's going to change in the one you're in. And you just got this like time, right? Where you can do other. So I've been like, I call this book I've been working on it for like 2 years in between the last couple books in those. So I say that because I don't want readers to be like, why are you writing another book when you got to, I'm waiting on you to get this book. I would be, I mean, it wouldn't happen any faster if I wasn't writing this book. I'll put it that way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you've got some downtime in between sending it off to an editor and getting it back and all of that.
Exactly.
So is that what's next?
Forth,
is that so book 5 is going to be the next one that comes out? And then, so this is going to be what you do after Wrack and Ruin is over?
Book 5 will come out next summer. This book will come out this year. The book that I'm about to send back to my editor for like its 3rd round. It will come out this year, but it is not in either of these worlds. Well,
Okay.
that's not true. It is in the world. It's in the world.
Just
I
not
actually
in the zombie
had-
apocalypse.
Right. I actually had Oliver and Sam. I don't know if you remember Sam from the first book.
Yeah, his partner.
I had them make an appearance in this other secret book that I'm working on.
Oh, nice. And so will this
So
also be a horror? Is this going to be fantasy?
It's a techno thriller.
Okay. Okay.
It's different. It's different than anything I've written. So
That's exciting.
Yeah. It'll be fun, I think.
Nice. So are you going to be at any events this year? Any conventions or book tours or anything?
I haven't planned on any. It's just hard with my job and as busy as I am, but I would like to do some stuff. I might do something local. I think they're having something in Peoria. I live pretty close to Peoria, and they do something at the convention center once a year,
Nice.
usually in September, I think. Yeah, so I could end up going and doing something there, but I want to do more stuff. People ask me quite a bit. Other authors ask me too, and I'd love to just do it, but my career is demanding. Has me traveling a lot. I've been like to Ireland and Switzerland and a lot of different
Holy
places
cow.
already this year, and then a lot of places: Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Indiana. So my work has me doing a lot of stuff. So it's tough, but I'm not that far from retirement. So once I retire, I think I'll just do. I just think I'll go everywhere. I just want to do
There you
that.
go.
Like, yeah.
That sounds awesome. Well, I hope you get to retire soon. That'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, if I could, maybe your podcast will launch my Wrack and Ruin series we can get me a movie deal or something, and then I could.
There we go. See, now I would watch
You can
this
be,
as a movie.
you can be, yeah. And then
Yeah.
you definitely will have to be in the movie. You've got experience.
I do. Just a little bit, just as an extra, just a little bit. But it
No,
is,
it's all right.
honestly,
Make you a main character.
it's one of the most interesting takes on zombies I think that I've ever read.
Well, thank you.
I finished book 1 and I was like, wow, this is really, really good. This is not anything I've ever seen before.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
It was really good. So I think that's everything that I had for you. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about that I did not ask about?
No, I don't think so. I just want to say thank you and appreciate you having me on. And it was a lot of fun talking. I don't get to do this
Yeah.
very often. So it was really nice. I appreciate it.
No, I'm happy to have you on. The books were fantastic.
Thank you.
So I am overjoyed to spread the word.
I wish you could see me because I'm smiling, but I do. Not
I'll
know
be
why
sure
my
the
camera's not
picture that I
working.
put up, I'll be sure it's a smiling picture.
Okay, that's fair. Then I could be smiling the whole time.
There you go. All right. Well, that's everything that I had. Thank you again so
Okay.
much for coming on and spending some time with me. Thank you everyone for sticking around. Thank you to my Patreon subscriber, TJ Lombardi, for being amazing. And yeah, keep leveling up.